Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So, I'm going to talk about episode 7, which is titled Make Sense. In the manga, this is titled Picture Perfect Part 4 and Part 5. The episode started off very interesting as it seemed to start off with a pretty long recap as to what happened in episode 6 after Ko and Nene discover the world isn't real and they're chasing after Mitsuba. We jump straight back into the rumor of them talking about Mei. Now, I felt that this recap was a little unnecessary. We already know what happened in the last episode with her rumor being spread and what it was about. So I think that they threw this in just mostly as a time eater kind of thing, as I felt that this episode was actually a little bit more loyal to the manga. However, that doesn't go without me saying that there were, of course, some obvious edits that were thrown in after the whole introduction of Mei's rumor. So after chasing Mitsuba back into campus, we see Tsuchiko Mori and we see Yako, and everything is completely different. See, now, this was not included in the manga, although it is, but it's definitely elaborated more upon inside of the anime. Along with Teru being there, that's also included in the manga, but again, all of this is included in the anime, I think as a means to eat up time in the show, because I guess to them they felt that there wasn't enough material to work with chapters 44 and 45, so I guess that they just threw everything in as a time-space filler for everything. And we do see the moke, and I went ahead and I found the little manga screenshots. So this is what I meant by they elaborated more on these scenes in the anime, which I thought was pretty cute to see that, but I guess they just kind of threw it in just to eat up some time. So, of course, after catching Mitsuba, they begin to question him, like, what are you talking about? What's going on? All of this is happening. What is going on? You need to answer some questions here. So again, all of this is just being pulled back into like what we had just seen with everything, which again, it's just like, okay, we're drawing way too much attention to this. Like, let's just move on from this, because the manga definitely kept the tone much more serious, which is what it needed to be. So of course, Nene gets Mitsuba to talk by being up in his face, and of course she's much more sympathetic with him, and he answers to her, which he is like, well, why do you want to leave? What do you want to leave so badly? So after figuring out why they want to leave, just like the manga, they are finally figuring out where they need to go, and they figure out, well, we got to go to that big tower that was never there before. Now, I thought this was very interesting with Mei's character, because in the manga, she's shown to be more or less kind of stable a little bit. She's just shown in her studio, and then here in the anime, she is shown having some kind of mental breakdown, destroying all of her canvases and all of her paintings while calling each and every single one of them worthless. And I will talk more about Mei's character later on. So as of course they get closer to the tower, they're obviously uncomfortable and unsettled by how big it is and how uncomfortable the air is around it. And of course Nene mentions that she feels uncomfortable because the normal Hanako isn't with her. And of course the normal Hanako is the ghost that she's always known. I only wish that they would have kept the dialogue of her calling him normal in the anime, because obviously he is not normal in this world for her. So just as the manga plays out, Mei reveals herself and she starts feeling up on Nene. She starts groping on her and feeling up her legs, and she introduces herself properly, just like the manga. And I did appreciate that they kept more or less how she looks and how she introduces herself. I loved that. I loved how they kept that just the same. Now here's where I noticed that some things sort of got changed around with the anime. Mei's character kind of changed a little bit, and we also got some changed dialogue. For some reason, they went ahead and changed the dialogue to Ko being the one asking for a way back to the world, when in the manga it was Nene who asked. And of course, some more scenes ended up getting changed, which I don't really understand why they did it this way. It just doesn't make sense to me. So as she further explains to Nene and Ko, the only way to get out of here is you gotta kill Mitsuba and you have to kill Amane/Hanako. The screen pans out to the whole screen of the museum. And in the manga, as it does that, this is where we see Natsuhiko and Sakura as they begin talking about everything, and we get that little hint that I mentioned last episode about how her rumor works and how you're stuck in this world. was in chapter 44, like I had mentioned before. That is mentioned way before, and for some reason, this entire moment is moved to the very end of the episode, of episode 7, where they suddenly make their appearance in the shut down museum in the dark, where they begin talking about it, just the way it is explained in the manga, but for some reason, everything is moved to the very end of the episode. But I didn't understand why they did that, because they did the whole pan away scene where we see the museum, and just like the manga as it was supposed to do that, that's when we see them, because they're already sitting up there. So I don't get why the anime did that whole pan away scene, because that's where they're supposed to be. So stepping away from that, I want to take the time to talk about Mei. So as she begins to explain, like, yeah, this is how you got to do it, and this is the only way that you're going to get out. She begins to explain how her world works. And I feel personally, this could just be me as per usual, but I felt like her character was a little muddled. They seem to have like a difficult time, I guess, kind of mixing her personality. Sometimes they got it right and sometimes they didn't. In the manga, she seems like she's way more expressive with her emotions, but they seem to have really gotten down her personality when she was serious, as I really liked the point when they had her pulling out the weapons from her drawing. It just felt very odd, because to me in the manga she had way more personality. She was more bubbly and more happy-go-lucky before she would turn into like that dark personality, that evil, dark, you gotta kill your friends type personality. And it was really weird, because to me in the anime she felt like she was sort of stiff, and they would try to animate a little bit of her bubbliness, but to me it just felt very overshadowed, and it just didn't come out as well as it did in the manga. And compared from the pool episode, I felt like they did a little bit better of a job animating Nene's fear. They pulled it much better from the manga panels, as this time she actually looks horrified when she thinks about the fact that she might have to kill Hanako. So it's like, thank you for actually animating the fact that she is absolutely horrified of the thought of having to kill Hanako. So here's a little bit more of an example of how her character kind of changed, as she is seen saying, "There's no need to rush." And in the anime, she's just kind of seeing like, oh, well, there's no need to rush. So once more, we see her giving just sort of a simple bow goodbye. And in the manga, she's just kind of seen giving her like a sad little wave goodbye. After escaping the museum, Nene has a little bit of a breakdown, because who can blame her? Ko comforts her, and of course, here is Amane, or Hanako. He is questioning them, like, what's going on? And we're kind of led into this whole thing where we figure out that because he's alive, he loves the stars and he wants to be an astronomer or an astronaut, and of course he wants to look at the stars. But just like the manga, all of that is interrupted by Tsukasa, who reveals himself. And I thought this to be interesting, because in the anime, Amane Hanako tells her, like, don't mind him, don't pay attention to him. And as Tsukasa sneaks up on her, the dialogue got changed just a little bit by like a word or two. In the anime, he says, "I hope you managed to kill Amane good." And in the manga, he says, quite simply, "I hope you managed to kill Amane," as he walks away from her, turns around and gives her that same sneer. However, that sneer is a still shot from the next chapter. And for some reason, his sneak up on her and the way that he turns to look at her just feels a lot more creepier and ominous in the manga than it does in the anime. So I don't know, I feel like the anime just kind of struggles building that ambiance and building that whole feeling of hopelessness to me. It just feels that the anime is focusing too much on keeping the anime silly and cute, and I feel like we need to take a step away from that at certain points in the manga. It has its silly and adorable, cute moments as well. However, we need to bring it back and focus on the creepy world building and keep it in that ambiance, because once we get past picture perfect, things are going to get a lot darker, and they keep getting darker. So we need to stop that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will be back next week to discuss episode 8, which they have titled Make It Sound Nice, which covers chapters 46 and 47, I'm going to assume, and hopefully not chapter 48, because if they throw 48 in there, it might mash some things together. So we will see. So thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you all next week. Bye bye.